Okay, doing a video here, little market update. Lots going on recently. This is the daily on Bitcoin, and I think the last few times I talked about getting a drop here sooner than later. We've still been chopping around for the last, I don't know, few weeks. We had a couple opportunities to set up right around here and continue downward. But we chopped around for a while. We got up, had a chance to actually, make a move higher, but they sold it back down. We had another chance down here to sell down, but they saved it and then they chopped it for about almost a week. We had 8 consecutive green dailies on Bitcoin, and they just couldn't squeeze it. I was thinking we would get, a move up to 78,500. I had a measured move, and we actually came and got a reversal candle right at our cup and handle neckline trend line. This big thick yellow line that goes back many months. If I zoom out, I can show that again. How important that area is. So, zoom out here even further, and you can see it all the way back here. So here was our cup, and then here was our handle forming in here. So this was the neckline, this big thick orange yellowish. I made it bold because it's just an important area. And so if we go back to the daily at our current moment of where we're at, you can see that as of a few days ago, as I zoom in here slowly, this is an older computer, so bear with me, we got our red reversal candle right there, and I was watching that area, and I knew that was an important area where if we couldn't squeeze up out of it, we were going to reverse. And sure enough, I stayed up late that night, saw us, buy up into the area and then start to sell down, and I put in a really big size short up here because I know that this is a huge area of resistance. And I knew that, we have the 3-week and the 2-week that are so bearish looking. Like our monthly candle is bearish. So this whole 8-day, move higher, I knew that this isn't going to last. I mean, we started this move up off of a red candle. And when you do that, like I've said in the past, it's a problem. Not to mention, the monthly, 3-week, and the 2-week. I think even the weekly weren't right. They're all red candles, and they're, reversal candles. So I knew that any move to the upside would, probably wouldn't last. I was thinking maybe we could get a quick wick up and then sell down, but, like magic, we found resistance at that neckline area, that very important area, and we got our red reversal. And I put on a ton of size short on this candle. And sure enough, we're selling down. And so now what we have, I've got it drawn pretty much like how I think this is going to go. I mean, this is a pretty good upper trend line, this yellow trend line right here. And then I've got a couple trend lines I have drawn down here that we'll just kind of see how they play out. Kind of not perfect. This reddish pink one down here, this connects 3 points. We just haven't had a touch lately in the last few weeks, so I think this is an area where we could come down here. And I also have this yellow bottom trend line drawn that goes back and touches 2 points, but has a couple wicks through it, and I want to see if we find some resistance at that area. So I've got a couple bottom trend lines drawn, and we'll see which one acts as a support area. And what I think could happen is that we will come down either to this trend line or this trend line, and we could set up, maybe chop sideways a few days and then drop probably by, I don't know, maybe next week. We'll go over a couple scenarios here. And what I want to do is I want to show the previous setup we had where we made a drop, and it was up here. And this was back in December. So this was from November 21st all the way to looks like January 20th. So up here, this was 2 months of time that we had chopped around in here. So this is about 60 days in here that we chopped for, kind of like what we're doing right now. You can see we had the initial move down, and then, you know, we chopped around for 60 days before getting our next setup to go down off of. And right now, you know, here's our move down, our big move down, and now we've been kind of doing the same thing where we're chopping around. And so this candle right here, this was on February 6th, and we're currently on March 19th. So this is about a month and a half. So our previous setup took 2 months. This is about a month and a half. And so I think in the next, you know, probably, I don't know, week or two, I think we're going to get this set up to drop off of, if it's anything like our last drop. And it could happen sooner than later, I don't know. So a couple different scenarios I could see, and we're in for some very bearish closes this week. I think we get the 1 and 2 week close. I'm not 100% sure on that. I know the 3 week still has like another week or two. I still think the 3 week has another 2 weeks to close, so, and it's looking bearish still. But as of right now, what I think is going to happen is one of two things. We either sell down like we are now, and we set up, you know, maybe in the next week, you know, down here, and we get a setup candle. Hopefully we get a setup candle that can send us lower. Now, if they want to push this out a little bit longer, maybe perhaps we find support down here or down here, and then they rally it back up for another few weeks before rolling it over, you know, sometime in April. Maybe, you know, mid-April we start to roll over, we set up and dump, maybe mid to late April. I'm really hoping they don't do that. I really want, you know, the high of this candle to be the top, where we can, you know, I can hold on to my short and we can set up and dump. I'll probably take some off once we start reaching this trend line and this trend line, and I will re-add on to my short if we get a setup candle to drop off of. You know, just to play it safe, where in case they do want to rally it back up inside this, you know, this pattern we have, this, you know, this whole setup pattern before our next drop. Maybe, you know, if they want to bring it up here one last time to our, you know, our neckline area right up here, that way we kind of get like a, you know, we got a 1 here, and then bring it back up, and then another touch, and we'll have like a 1 right there, and then we'll have a 2 touch and then drop. They don't necessarily have to do that though. I mean, it could just drop from here, you know. I will say though, the daily moving averages are not quite set up yet to just drop here in the next couple days. I think we can make it down to our trend line, but I think we will get a little bit of a rebound, little bit of maybe a little relief rally, nothing crazy. But you can see here the 8 is starting to roll over the 10, and it has rolled over the 10. So our orange 8 EMA has rolled over the 10 SMA, and right now, as of now, we are trading below the 20 SMA. So I think by the time today's close, you know, gets here in about 7.5 hours, if we do trade below the 20 SMA, I think it's going to pull these moving averages tight down, and we'll make it so that it's almost set up that it's crossing. And so we'll kind of see how today closes. This is our daily. Let's look at the 2 and 3 day, how we are set up. I think we're falling off of a green 2 day. So here's kind of a reversal, but it's a green candle. It's got a long upper wick. We did get a little bit of an upper wick on this new 2 day candle, and this 2 day does close today. It's a very bearish candle, very engulfing style candle. And we have found support down at our 20 SMA on the 2 day. So that's kind of where we've traded down to. And that'll close today. And if we get this big red close, you know, that's pretty bearish. We should trade lower off of this candle. Let's look at the 3 day. So the 3 day, you know, we have the higher high on the red candle. So unlike the 2 day, you know, where we're coming down off of a green candle, we do have, you know, a nice big red engulfing 3 day candle. So it makes me think that, you know, with the 2 day, we may need to, if we do drop down here, I think we will set up properly before dropping, since we are dropping off of a green candle. We're probably going to need a setup, you know, chop sideways at least, at very minimum, for probably a week, I would say, before getting this big drop. And I think I've shown my measured move of what we could expect on this. I have a measured move that takes us down to about 46K. And basically the way I got it is I measured it from the high and lows of our last break. So right there, this is from where I think I was a little bit conservative on this. So I took it from where we broke, but technically you can take it up from the highest point. And then wherever we break out of our newest structure, that'll take us down to, you know, our measured move area, which is right around 42K. But I want to make it a little, I want to be a little less greedy on it, you know, and kind of have this drawn so I know an area where I can take profit. So I'll just leave it around there. I'll see when we start to break out of here, and then I'll realign it. But it looks like we're heading for 46K, you know, kind of based on how this is going. We also have a smaller short-term measured move, you know, from our inverse cup and handle up here. So I think I've shown how this is drawn. The highest point from up here, let me draw this real quick. So this is coming across to here, just like that. This connects there, and then from where we broke out back here, so our breakout was right there. So this takes us down to, that's our 56K area. So we didn't quite get there on that last candle. We got down to 60K. So I you know, if anything else, we're gonna be at 56, 55K. Like that's just the measured move longer term. And you know, we also have a little bit bigger of a measured move, and this is a big area right here. This this area that I have in bold down here, this kind of red pink line. So maybe this is an area we get to right here, kind of in the middle between my two measured moves of 55K and 42, 46K. This is right at 49K. You know, that's a big area going back in time. We pick up points in here, we pick up points in here. There's a touch in there, a bunch of touches around in here, and then there's some touches back in here. So I mean, this is another big area. I kind of, and if I zoom in, I can show all the individual touches in here and how important it is. But I think that's a very good area to look at, and maybe I'll add to some spot Bitcoin once we get to around that area, and we'll kind of see how we set up down in here. So I'll be really watching that area when we get down to there, and I think it won't be too much longer before we get there. Things are still looking very bearish. I was thinking maybe there could be a chance where, we somehow got up through here and set up and maybe come back up. But, based on that yearly candle and all the monthly candles and the weekly candles we have, like everything still looks bearish. So, I mean, it's hard for me to like say that it's even possible we could come up. But, I like to entertain ideas that I'm not thinking of, but I have to go based on the information that's given to me. And if just by looking at these weeklies, like let's go look at the 1 week, like this is what we have right now. We actually had a really bullish weekly candle going in, this week. We had an inside green candle. The only problem is we have this like huge previous upper wick week where we just blasted off this red candle, and that's a problem. So we got all the way up into our moving averages. We got up to the 8 EMA and then sold all the way back down and had a low hanging body green candle where, if you would have long this weekly, put a stop at the low, like you could have caught all that, the next week. But, I would have never, coming up into the moving averages while they're rolling down, like I would have never long this. But sure enough, there's absolutely no lower wick, on last week's candle. They just open pump it, like the tiniest lower wick, like barely anything. We barely got any bit of a pullback last week. They just open fired the markets, which is crazy when, this is why, the news going on TV, like, and, and trading, like, sometimes it doesn't even go hand in hand. Like, it doesn't even make sense. You would think that we would have just dumped last week with all the craziness going on, but they just open pumped it, took out a lot of stops, and then, to start this week, they pumped it, even more back on Monday, and then I think it was Tuesday where we started to reverse and come down. So for about a week and a half, they had a lot of strength. So, but we pierced through the 10 and then started selling back down. But this is the weekly candle we're going to get with a higher high, big fat red candle. Like if this is how we're going to close, like this is a topping candle where we should trade lower, starting next week. Like, so this is not a candle you would go higher off of. This looks like our yearly candle where we should trade lower, and we still have 3 days, 8 hours. So I mean, a lot can happen in that time. Maybe we sell down a little bit more, and then we come up, kind of have like a small body with a lower wick and a higher upper wick. And maybe the previous week we do trade up higher and then get a low hanging body, which would be a unicorn setup short for the next weekly candle. So it'll be interesting to see how they play this. But right now this is very bearish weekly candle. We broke the high of our green candle, which is what I wanted at least. Now we have a good size upper wick. And now we've got a, pretty good sized body candle, reversal candle. So that, I mean, I like that. That's good. Here's our 2 week. So we have, same thing as the weekly, they tried to pump a big fat green candle with no lower wick on the 2 week off of this red, and that's wrong. So now we have a reversal candle. We didn't quite get up to our, 8 EMA. 10 SMA. This was kind of the area I was thinking maybe we would come up and touch briefly and then sell down, but we didn't quite make it there. We got our resistance right at that important trend line. But let's see. So the 2 week actually closes in 10 days. So I mean, still a lot could happen between now and then. So I think the 3 week and the 2 week both close at the same time, I think. I'll have to double check that. We'll look at the 3-week here in a second, but we still have 10 days, 8 hours. And so interestingly enough, I don't necessarily know if I want this candle to break this green candle's low. I kind of want it to sell down, as low as it can without breaking the low of this candle. And then that would be a perfect setup with these moving averages rolling down here, the 8 and the 10 getting close. And by the time this closes, I mean, the 8 will practically be touching the top of this candle, and that'll just look so nice. So maybe they have to hold it for another 10 days to get this 2-week close, because right now it's a green, and I don't want to just start selling down. Even though we have the higher high, I still want it to be an inside candle. It'll look so much better, and it'll be more of a perfect setup to drop off of. So it's just something to watch. I mean they can drop it whenever they want now. They've got the dailies to do it, and the weekly, once it closes this week. But we may have to wait another 10 days, 8 hours. Let's look at the 3-week. Let's see. So right now we actually have a green 3-week, and it does close in 10 days, 8 hours. So I wonder if they're going to wait for these closes. And we don't necessarily need to on the 3-week because we had a previous red, but we are dead flat on the bottom of this 3-week. So I bet they do break it. I bet we will see, this come all the way down and break the low of this current 3-week, because, we have no lower wick on the 3-week. We just open pumped off of this inside red, and we broke the 3-week high of it, and then we sold back down. So that's why I was surprised we didn't get more of a pump up, because once this 3-week high got broke, a lot of stops got, triggered, and I thought we'd see more of a a push upward. But you can see how powerful this area of resistance is right here. The neckline is just so important, and so I think for sure if we get this 2-week red and then we sell down, we get the 3-week red, like, I mean, it's gonna be game over at that point. Like, we're gonna come down like 100%. These moving averages will roll down and catch up a little bit, and I mean, so we'll see. We'll see if they can get this to turn red. I mean, there's a lot of time. 10 days, 8 hours, so much can happen in that time. But I'm kind of hoping we just sell down. We get a red 3-week. We get our inside red 2-week. And then we have a nice looking red reversal on the weekly. And I think we'll be golden to drop. And it could happen that quickly. And hopefully we'll have the nice daily to, call out and go short on. That's the 3-week. So here's our monthly. We got 12 days, and look what we could get on the monthly. I mean, we could have a monthly unicorn 3-week and 2-week. I mean, if this comes down, here's our moving averages rolling over on the monthly. Our 10 is still above the 20. I think after this month closes, I think it'll start to roll over the 20, and that'll be even better. They'll catch up a little bit more. Hopefully we can get an inside red candle without breaking the low of our previous month in February, which was 60K. So if we can get Bitcoin right now, we have a little bit, we've got our upper wick for the month, so we're good. Now we just need to trade down to the low 60s and close somewhere down here. We'll have the 2-week, we'll have the 3-week, and we'll have the monthly close. And if we can get this inside red monthly, that'll be freaking sweet. It'll be a unicorn week. We'll have the weeklies and the monthly, and hopefully we get a daily. And then yeah, we should drop. It should happen. We still got 12 days, 8 hours. A lot can happen. Like I've said, maybe they just drop it from here. Maybe they rally it up for a while and then drop it, before the month's over. I don't know. We'll see how they want to play it. But everything's still looking very bearish. Whether they get these temporary, pumps and chop it around, and it's frustrating because it's hard to trade when they do that. But once we get this set up, it'll be a really nice move. It'll be like the moves we've had in previous months where we got that drop when we got that drop like in February, I think it was. Like when was this? Let's zoom back in. Like we're looking for moves, like this. Like where we get a break and we just sell, 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 sell down, I mean, this sucks. Like when we chop around for days, we're up, down, up, down. We want moves where we can just, put our stop loss at the top of the candle and let it ride down each day. Like, you know, I mean, each day holds here, all the way down. Every single one of these days holds the daily high. I mean, look at this. Like, if we zoom in here, and the thing that kind of sucked is we didn't have a really good daily to short on. If this was a red candle, this would have been a unicorn setup. It was green though. Caught a little bit of it, but I wish this was a red candle. I mean, we chopped into the moving averages. Everything got really tight in here. And then here's our reversal candle. It was green though, so it was the wrong color. But I mean, once we start getting short here, like you keep your stop loss at the top of the candle, and then each day you move it down. So put your stop loss there, and then stop loss here. And then they get this big green hammer. It doesn't break the high. So if you keep your stop loss there, it doesn't take you out, and you're good. Then the next day, a big red candle as the moving averages catch up. You put your stop there, big downward movement. Then another one, stop loss move to there, stop loss move to there, and then our last, kind of this is probably where the day where you take profit just because of how big this candle is. Like you drop down here and then the next day opens, you drop, and then huge rally back up, and this is probably where you take profit. And then as you can see, we chop in here for the last month and a half, kind of setting up, waiting for our next, move. Like this is all a setup in here for the last month and a half. We're just setting up to make a move. I would say 90% chance it's lower, based on, the current candles we have in place. But, maybe they, and this is a bear flag too. Like, whenever you get an initial drop down and then you kind of get kind of a rising pattern. So see how we're kind of rising upward. This is a textbook bear flag. So where we just kind of chop in here upwards. We're kind of chopping upwards. So even if we come down and come back up again, like until this gets broken and we squeeze up, this is a bear flag pattern where we should break down lower. See a pretty good substantial move downward. It's just like how much longer are they gonna, chop it in here? I mean, this is a month and a half of time, and as of now, I'm 90% certain we're gonna drop, somewhere between end of March to, mid-April. We're gonna see that drop. And hopefully they give us a daily to catch. They really didn't give us a daily back here, unfortunately. Like some of these candles are just too big. And if you were going to get a daily, it was going to be a green candle. Let's see here. I mean, they gave you this small red candle back here. And it dropped initially, and it looked like we were going to go, but they wanted to save it one last time. And then they got this candle right here that I talked about, which would have stopped you out. So that would have been frustrating. And then they drop it off of green. They had the red to drop it off of, but so that was kind of frustrating. And like the total move itself started off of a green up here, before dropping and then chopping into the moving averages and dropping. So this was a little bit more harder to catch, and we can go up here and see, it's crazy how like it's just insane looking back on this. Is like where we topped out out of. Like here's 126. Here was the top up here, and we dropped off of a green daily, and then how we had the moving averages up here, and then how October 10th happened is just just stupid. Like the craziest. I still can't believe this. Like this still blows my mind. I remember reading so much and like I was looking back in crypto history and like nothing has ever happened like this in history. Just absolutely insane. Above the moving averages too, and they just free fall it right from all-time high. And this, what's funny is this is not even that bad of a candle compared to rest of crypto. Rest of crypto had the longest lower wick, like way down, like huge, like 60, 70% move in a day. Like it was the most absurd thing ever. But we got that, and then we've been pretty much chopping and then down ever since. And we did have some red reversal candles, like that is a good red reversal, topping candle that we've dropped off of. There's another one. This is actually a pretty good, decent short candle. The only thing I don't like about this candle is it's big, so you're going to take on some heat if it comes against you like the next day. Like it comes up a lot. This candle, like it starts to come back up, and the 8 has like twisted with the 10, so the 8's above the 10. I want the 8 to be below the 10 when dropping, so this was a tough candle just because of the size of it and the 8 and the 10 not being necessarily right. But we did get an initial drop, and then we chopped into the moving averages before dropping. Um, so yeah, I mean, some of these dailies are tough. Like they're not always the easiest, to trade. Um, if we go back, like here was a great long setup. I mean, here's a beautiful, like we had this whole, falling wedge pattern on Bitcoin, and this was back in early, early 2025, and you know, we get towards the apex of this pattern, we get the double bottom right here, perfect down here, back in April of last year, double bottom on the daily. We get up, and we start to chop around into the moving averages as they roll up. We chop sideways for a few days right after kind of breaking out of this pattern, and then we get that candle right there, and that is like the most perfect daily candle to long off of. You get out of this bullish pattern. The falling wedge is a bullish pattern. We get up, we chop. Here come the moving averages rolling up. The 8 and the 10 has crossed the 20. Maybe you try this candle right here. Maybe you try and go long off that. And you leave your stop down here. And you get a red, but then you get a green. Your stop is still good. And then you get this candle, which doesn't stop you out, but this is an even better candle to go long off of. You move your stop up a little bit to the low of this candle. Maybe you add some size, and then boom, big moves. Everything's rolling up here. And I remember that. I had some size on Bitcoin that day. That was a great trade. Like they don't typically always give you candles like that, but when they do, you got to take advantage. Like those are like perfect candles. Here's another one right here to long off of. And I know I'm showing longs, and I'll see if I can find a good short candle. But we initially get this move up, and then we chop, and then we got this tiny small green inside candle, and this is worth a shot long because of how tiny it is. You got the moving averages rolling up, and then boom, you get big moves up, big moves. So we're trying to find these smaller candles, that we can go long off of and add some size. It was a decent candle. I wish this was inside this candle. It's kind of a bigger candle, but you can see like we had this drawn, and then we got a bit of a move up, but kind of died out, and actually probably came back and took your stop at one point. Let's see, the low on that was 59,174. And yeah, so this candle right here would have stopped you out, but that was a decent candle to catch a little bit of a move up on. Let's see if I can go back and find a good short candle. Um, let's look in here. Did we have anything? Um, this was a decent candle, although it's kind of big. This would have been a good candle, but you would have got stopped out by the next day. But this would have been a good candle, you know, to short off of, and you would have caught all that downward. It's not perfect, but let's see. Let's go back. Um, There's a really good short right there, this candle. That's a good candle to short off of. So you're kind of chopping along. Everything's really tight in here, and you can see how like everything's kind of twisted with each other. And this is where you get big moves, where the moving averages are all really, really tight with each other. You get a red day, and then this candle right here. Once this closes, like you put your stop up here, everything's rolling down, and I mean, look at this huge candle downward. I mean, that is a huge candle. I mean, if I see that, I'm shorting every time. Like that is everything's so tight in here, and you can see it rolling down. Once this day closes, and I see the 10 and the 8 rolling down, and dead flat on the bottom, no lower wick. Like, man, let's look at this. I mean, that is a huge move, percentage-wise. This is 1 day of volume. That's 12% on that candle. That's huge. Another pennant, good move. Wasn't really a candle in here to go long off of, though. Sometimes that happens, and it sucks. And let's see. Let's go back here. Nothing in here really. Dropped off a green. So, I mean, I want it to be perfect. Like, I want the perfect setup when I'm shorting. Let's see if there's a candle up here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So here's, you know, kind of similar with what we're going through now, only it's a different pattern. But you can see how they do it. Like, they start the drop, and then for like, you know, a month of time, they chop around. You know, I think this is like a month of time. Let's see. That's 12th of May of 22, and then when they dropped it was the 10th of the next month. So almost a month. And they do give you a setup in here, and this is what I'm hoping to find on our current setup, where I will put on even more bigger size than what I'm in right now, because I want to catch the next move down like this. So you can see what happens, you know, when you get a big drop, you get so far away from the moving averages that they need time to catch up. So what happens is you kind of just chop around for a while, and you know, things start to get really tight in here, very coiled. And actually the moving averages start to get up and roll up, and then you kind of get this kind of topping, you know, candle. It's green, but you know, it's got a small body and a big upper wick, so a lot of times, you know, you will actually drop off of a candle like this instead of continuing, especially when it's this high up away from the moving averages. So, and then look, sure enough, the next day, big red candle back into the moving averages, you know. But it's a problem dropping off a green candle. So what do? They chop it. You get a green, then a red, you know, chop, chop, chop. Get another attempt up, you know. Then you get this red hanging man candle where you drop and then you come all the way back up, and then you get this candle. And this is an inside red candle, where the 8 rolls below the 10. So by the time this day, you know, the trading day ends, you got the 8 below the 10. You're still above the 20. So maybe I'll try a little bit of a short on this candle. I probably won't go too crazy. and I'll leave my stop up here and I'll start shorting. And then we get a little bit of a relief on the next day and then get this candle, an even smaller candle, lower body. Now the 8 and the 10 are really starting to roll towards the 20. I would add a little bit more size and put my stop up here, and then boom, next day we break out of the pattern. We close below the pattern. Now the 8 and the 10 have rolled over, and I'm tightening my stop down here, and I'm adding a little bit more size with this candle. And then boom, moving my stop here, catch that. Boom, another big candle, dead flat on the bottom. So I mean, the moving averages are right here, rolling down, dead flat on the bottom. You know, I bet we're still going lower. And then look, boom, another huge day. You know, red candle, and move my stop there. And then we wick down and then get our green candle. I probably take profit just because this is a green candle. But then we get another down day, red, and then, you know, before finally stalling out down here. I mean, that is a huge move, you know, but we start shorting once we see candles like this, you know. You can really tell that they're about to drop it, you know, when the moving averages get really tight, and then you start, you know, seeing these, you know, big selling candles and how they're positioned. This just looks really nice to drop here. Plus, we're getting towards the apex of our, you know, of our little pennant we had. So this was perfect, and I hope we get something like this. And I'm actually hoping we even get a little bit better setup than this too. Maybe a smaller candle, you know, closer to the moving averages. Like, that'll be really nice. So I'm really hoping they give us that in the next 10 to 20 days or whatever it is. Maybe it's sooner. Who knows? But I got some size on right now on Bitcoin short. I mean, I took it once it got towards the area of the neckline of our really major trend line. I started putting on short late. I stayed up late watching it. I saw like an hourly red reversal candle or something, and I started adding short, you know, and then I went to bed, and it came down a lot since I went to sleep, but you can probably find the hourly that I got in on. So these are hourly candles, and I had this drawn actually, and so I was kind of watching it. This was back on, when was this? The 18th. So March 18th, or no. When was this? This was Tuesday into Wednesday. So yeah, like I think it was this candle here. I saw us kind of forming this pattern, and then when we got this red candle, I started shorting, and then I was really fortunate to catch a lot of this. But I put on a lot of size right around here shorting. I think it actually goes back. I think I actually started shorting once I saw this kind of candle with a long upper wick, and then the next candle was a red. This was back on the 17th of Tuesday, so this was a few days ago. So yeah, I mean, we came up. This was our major trend line. We just couldn't get through it. It was a green candle, but the very next candle was an inside red, and I just knew it had a chance that it lost its momentum upward. So I saw this red hourly, and I got in, you know, and then I think I added more of the break here, probably on this candle, somewhere in here, and then was very fortunate to catch a lot of this. And I think I added even more. I think I had something drawn in here, like this. There's something in here, and then I saw the moving averages, you know, start to tighten in here, and I added a little bit more short, and then caught this. So, and then here we are, trading around 69,300. I mean, I was fortunate enough to get in around 75K, and I think my average price now is around 73,500. Just because I keep adding, because I know this drop is probably coming sooner than later, and I want, to get in at a really good price. And, hopefully they don't, find support here and then bring it back up, because that'll piss me off. But, it'll be all right. I'll re-add short if they do want to swing this back up one more time and clear stops. I'll look to see if we get any sort of reversal back up here and then add back to shorts. Knowing that this will probably be, the last time they would attempt to clear, any sort of shorts out of their position. But hopefully we just come down and we set up over the next few days and then start to drop it. Like, that's really what I want. We've chopped enough in here where I think maybe a few more days of setting up and then dumping it. Wait for these daily moving averages to start to cross the 20. Maybe chop a few days, get things really tight, and then dump it. Hopefully by around April time. Kind of what we're looking at right now. In which we have like 12 more days, but it could happen sooner than that. So when I'll make another video if I see it. Until then, I'll make it like another video if I see it set up on a daily and it looks like it's about to go. Kind of like how we had back here where I was like, hey, we have a chance where if they want to drop it here, they could. We had the 2 and 3 day back here, and so I made a video talking about like, hey, they could drop it here if they wanted to, but they just weren't ready to do that. They bought it up for 8 days, and then now we're coming back down. So we'll see if we'll set up here or not. And I'll make another video if it looks like, hey, it's go time. But until then, like, I would say like our current, resistance area is around, 75,800 on Bitcoin. This area up here where if it did come back, this is an area to look at. Kind of where we just were, right around 70. We'll just call it 76,000 is our resistance area up here. And then our support, is right around, let's say 67 to 68K, kind of at our minor area, and then 65 to 66K. We'll just say that kind of an area to watch for, and see if we do break through this 65,900 area. Then yeah, we could see that 55K, 56K area tested real soon. So you'll know if that area breaks right there, and then we could see it. And if you see 76K break, then I don't have a measured move of what it could get up to, but we'll make a separate video. If we start breaking 76K and we get up here, then we can have a different discussion. But until then, that's kind of all I have for now. Things should start happening sooner than later. So, all right.